This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team. The final score, Wrexham 1, Chesterfield 0. As you can hear the wind, and that's going to be a key player in today's summary of the match. That was a hell of an ugly game. There was very little football played in it, mostly because of the weather. The wind was horrific, made it very, very difficult to get the ball down and move it around at all. The defenders often having problems having to readjust as the ball wobbled in the wind. It didn't particularly blow in any one direction either, so it was quite hard to judge. And it was also made difficult, to be honest, because Chesterfield are a side who, under their new manager John Sheridan, have become very solid. They're a bit of a spoiling team in some senses. I don't mean that as an insult. He clearly did an excellent job in trying to get them back on an even keel. They're also clearly a squad which was assembled by Martin Allen. You can see they're all big and strong and aggressive and maybe not very good technically, quite a lot of them. And they made it difficult because they were battling away, and it looked like they were going to get a clean sheet at least in difficult conditions, until a remarkable defensive lapse allowed Akil Wright to score the goal. And although, like I said, it wasn't terribly pretty and there weren't a great deal of really clear-cut opportunities, and certainly Wrexham can't have very few, the fact of the matter is that it's a huge win, and an excellent crowd of over 7,000 really enjoyed it. And at the end of the match, and throughout the match to be fair, the atmosphere outstanding. The Wrexham fans, I think, recognising that there's something building here in terms of momentum, that injury time equaliser at Gateshead meant something, that Wrexham are a side who, under Brian Hughes, is just starting to get a bit of momentum going, just starting to become a side that believes. And even though I wouldn't say that goal scoring issue has been fully resolved, there's just a sense that this team has got self-belief and a desire to push things through. If you can forgive me for a moment while I make a stupid comparison, Atletico Madrid. You look at Atletico Madrid and what they've become under Diego Simeone. A side that doesn't create that much. A side that hasn't got a great deal of flair. In fact, when you see Simeone trying to introduce flair players and wide attacking players into the system, generally it ends in failure. And yet, they're a side that believes that at some point they'll score a goal. And the number of 1-0s they grind out is quite something. And Wrexham are just starting to show the beginnings of that. Please forgive me for such an out-there comparison. But this game here, with very little creativity, earlier in the season, I think would have felt like a 0-0, or maybe even like that Dover match where we'll let something soften at the end. But Hughes has instilled a bit of belief in the side, and also a desire to get the ball forward a little bit quicker and just try to ask questions of the defences. And even though we weren't creating opportunities before that 60th minute goal, there was still that sense that, yeah, we'll nick something. That Atletico Madrid style thought that, yeah, keep it tight at the back and we'll just pinch something. And once it went to that and Chesterfield bombarded Wrexham's defence afterwards, they held firm. Yet another clean sheet. The club record now very close. And, well, a hell of a 3 points, especially as the teams around Wrexham, we don't know how Solihull Moors have done yet, have won. But an excellent victory for Wrexham. So, 3 changes to the Wrexham team, and again bold moves by Brian Hughes, because all 3 coming back from injury, and all players that you might have thought we might give an extra 90 minutes rest to. Maybe Mark Carrington's injury just precipitated one of those changes. Sean Pearce coming back in at centre back, Kieran Kennedy having to go across the right back, as Kevin Roberts, who's on the bench, isn't fully fit yet. Rob Lainton came back in as well for Christian Dibble, and Stuart Bevan returned through the middle for Jason Oswell, and the 3 of them put in a good shift, although Lainton, actually to be fair, was mostly just taking crosses and being watchful in the wind. But Wrexham immediately found it was going to be tricky to get through a Chesterfield side that had a deep-lying midfielder sitting in front of a back 3, and were knocking the ball long and really effective in the middle of the pitch at blocking off passing channels. And the early opportunities, such as they were falling to the visitors. Scott Bowden back at the racecourse again, having been a pretty insipid character at Gateshead. For Gateshead, when Wrexham played Gateshead here before Christmas, was much more effective and lively, at least, in this game. And after 4 minutes, he made a lovely little flicked ball around the corner onto his strike partner, Marc-Antoine Fortuné. And Fortune looked very dangerous. He troubled Lawler early on, and on this occasion he just neatly turned Lawler, but was denied because Kennedy, doing really well covering at right back, slid in and made a superb tackle 6 yards out. Fortune, coming back from injury, would look impressive and lively up front, as indeed would Bevan at the other end. The other opportunity was a real close shave for Wrexham. It came in the 19th minute when Fortune started off down the left-hand side, cutting in, and they took a powerful shot, a terrific block by Luke Young, but the ball span out to Curtis Weston 20 yards out, and he smashed a terrific shot that just flicked the top of the bar as it went through into the cop. A great strike by him. Wrexham had more of the game, in all honesty, but really were struggling to set the chances up, even though Bevan was manful and sparky as ever in his attempts to occupy the three central defenders. Tollis was finding it hard to get into the game as Chesterfield looked to restrict space on his side of the pitch. On the other side, Rutherford was energetic as ever, but struggling to get into really dangerous areas. Akil Wright was bursting onto the ball in the attacking third occasionally, but that little bit of composure when he had shooting or passing opportunities wasn't quite there. And yet, in the 37th minute, it looked almost certain that Wrexham would take the lead. It was Bevan doing tremendously well to tackle Yarni in his own half and help it on to Tollis, who was one-on-one with the ex-Wrexham goalie Shwan Jalal. Tollis' first touch was a little bit heavy, but he still managed to get to the ball before the keeper, and it looked like he'd executed it perfectly, just dancing around Jalal. But Jalal, well, we all know he is a very good shot stopper, and he's quick off his line. He did superbly, lunging down low to his right to make a brilliant save and snatch the ball off Tollitt's toe as he was about to hit the net. So the half end is goalless, and it's frustrating. The second half started in very, very similar manner. Chesterfield's direct play was giving them the odd scrap to fight for in the Wrexham half. Wrexham was struggling really to make the ball stick in the Chesterfield penalty area, and then out of almost nothing in the 60th minute came the decisive goal. But maybe the decisive element to it wasn't so much Wrexham's creativity as Chesterfield's defence suffering an inexplicable lapse. You could see the shortcomings of Chesterfield's defence. It was obvious to anyone who's seen Chesterfield this season, to be honest, even before the game began. The three centre-backs can defend, but they're slow. Will Evans, who was destroyed by Rakeel Pike, you might remember when he was shifted to right back when the sides met earlier this season, and Hollis in particular, are very slow. And Wrexham in the first half, I think, were trying to knock balls in behind them to get players to burst beyond them on the turn. It wasn't quite working out, partly because the wind was playing havoc with the weight of the pass, partly because Bevan was just finding it difficult to time his runs and was getting caught offside a few times. In the second half, because Wrexham, Chesterfield's defensive unit again looked rock solid until that crazy 60th minute lapse. Wrexham on the breakaway, but the problem was there was only one player bursting forwards. He had to hold up and wait for support, and when it was played back in, I mentioned it in commentary, Chesterfield got 7 men behind the ball before Wrexham got a second player up in support of the striker, so it looked like the attack was completely over. Except it wasn't. Rutherford was that sole striker. He laid the ball backwards. When Young got it on the right-hand side, he swept an early ball into the heart of the penalty area, and remarkably, even though Chesterfield had all the defensive players back in position with essentially hardly anyone to mark, nobody picked up Akil Wright, who, standing on the penalty spot, was able to launch himself forwards with a diving header into the bottom left corner under no pressure whatsoever. Wright, who's, missed some chances lately, but to be fair to him, doesn't stop getting into those scoring positions, decisive, knocking the ball down, but again, the defending, would have surely made John Sheridan tear his hair out. And for a couple of minutes afterwards, there was a danger Chesterfield might implode when Kennedy slammed a massive long ball over the top. Again, the wind was deceptive. Jalal had to come out to the edge of his area and caught it, the linesman judging just outside the box. Massive, massive call by the linesman. And Wrexham were furious that he didn't get a red card, but just a yellow. I've got to say, all right, 2 things here, and both of them, I'm afraid, are going to conclude that Jalal's very lucky. One of them was that, okay, I'm a failed goalkeeper, so maybe my reading of this is incorrect. The way I look at it, if you really look at the rules, I don't see why a goalkeeper should be given a straight red card for coming out of the box and handling it. So in that respect, I think the referee's right to give a yellow. Having said that, the way referees tend to apply that rule isn't according to the rules as I read them. Referees tend to say in those situations, that's a straight red. So Jalal very lucky in that circumstance. Also very lucky, because the moment the flag went up, Jalal hurled the ball furiously away like a fast bowler in cricket, overarm, half the length of the pitch. Well, if that's not dissent, what is? So why didn't he get a yellow for the handball, then a yellow for the very aggressive dissent? Anyway, the referee, I've got to say, had a poor game throughout, gave him just a yellow and nothing else. And the free kick came of nothing. There's a massive wall, an 8-man wall with Wrexham players studied into it as well. And James Jennings decided to try and drive it underneath the wall, which I think was a smart move. The wall did jump, but it got tangled up in their feet underneath the wall and was partially scrambled clear. When the ball was picked up again on the left-hand side, it was Tollett bursting past his men and pulling the ball back from the goal line. Bevan on the edge of the area took a wild air shot though and missed the ball completely, and the ball dribbled out for the throw-in on the right-hand side. Immediately Bevan was removed to a standing ovation, and Jason Oswell was put in, and Oswell just continued Bevan's good work, hassling with good energy the central defenders and giving them a hard time. However, Chesterfield, to their credit, did bounce back. They went 4-4-2. They put Denton on up front, the massive centre forward. He's one-dimensional, but he does do that one thing very well, winning headers. And they started to cause Wrexham a few problems as they launched long balls into the box and went very close in a little passage of play, which started off with a good breakaway. Smith ripping in across, Denton jumping up and nodding the ball down. And it fell to Chapman. Now, a strange little instant, he sort of mishit it. It was spinning up towards the left post. Leighton lunging full stretch as it arced over him. It went just wide. The referee gave a corner. Leighton absolutely apoplectic. He was absolutely adamant that he didn't touch it and it should have been a goal kick. Wrexham would have been livid if it had led to a goal, and goodness me, it came about as close to a goal as you can get. The corner was swept in. The big centre-back Evans got up in the middle of the 6-yard box and planted a terrific header inside the left post. But Oswell did superbly to head it off the line. He had to adjust his body shape and just drop down to his knees to get his head down to it and head the ball clear. And the ball was swept back in once more, and Denton, well, I mean, I don't think he could have asked for a corner in a better place if he'd put it there with his hand. Ball swept into the edge of the 6-yard box, and he was there rising and planted his header a yard over the bar. A real opportunity for the hulking centre forward. He'd have another headed opportunity 9 minutes later. Started off with a poor back header by Kennedy. Leighton doing really well to get off his line and punch the ball away ahead of Bowden. The cross then was swung back in and Denton attacked it just outside the 6-yard box. Pearson was a bit cute. I think he knew he was caught underneath it and wasn't going to beat Denton to the header, so he just managed to make sure that he was in Denton's path so that Denton would have to stretch over him to make the header, and as a result the striker couldn't control it and planted it well wide of the right post. Lots of energy and aggression and directness from Chesterfield from now on, but Wrexham defended solidly and wasted time like guns. The referee had been very lax when Chesterfield were wasting time, and although he warned Wrexham about it, he only added 4 minutes on and a little bit after that. The crowd did their part as well, keeping one ball when it was launched into their midst from a poor cross by Bingham Williams, and Wrexham were quite happy to dig in and hang on. They had one more opportunity just before Ben Tollett was brought off to give Chris Holroyd a late run. Tollett mounted a wonderful run, beating 3 men, surging down the left channel, and then pulling the ball back. Weston just beat Oswell to it. Rutherford picking up on the edge of the area, tried to curl her, but couldn't pull it back enough, and it went wide of the right post. One final opportunity came to Chesterfield with 5 minutes left. Not the best of chances in all honesty. Yarney getting forward and standing up across, Pearson heading it away, and it was attacked by Jonathan Smith, who from 20 yards out lashed a shot. It went over the bar. Leighton though was comfortable, got underneath it and saw it over, and Wrexham were quite happy. A terrific win for them. Was it high quality? No. But was there a great deal of energy about it? Yes. Terrific collegiate effort with the players and the fans. One team, eh? Well, it's certainly, they all felt in it together. And I'm going to say one final point before I pass you on to the post-match analysis from Calon FM. My co-commentator Lucy Scott chose man of the match. I won't give away, no spoilers, don't worry. But I will say I have no idea, and I still have no idea, even though I've thought about it since, who I would have picked. And the reason for that is no one stood out. It was a difficult day to stand out as a footballer, quite frankly, but the teamwork and the amount of unity and organisation which they all showed was impressive. This was a team effort and a collective victory for Wrexham, who stay top of the league. So with that, I'll hand over to that post-match Calon FM analysis with myself and Lucy Scott. This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team. So the final score, Wrexham 1, Chesterfield 0. And Lucy, that was, it wasn't pretty, but it was darn effective.
That was a battle, yeah, that really was. But there's so many conditions and things that you in the past would go against Wrexham, where the wind we talked about a lot, and the referee was rubbish and inconsistent, and there are lots of factors that in the past would have affected Wrexham, and for me, talked about it before, that just shows that shift in mentality, and that Wrexham they're confident in each other and can battle out wins like that. And it was ugly. We knew before the game it was going to be ugly because of the factors and the type of team Chesterfield are, and a big physical team, but they've done so well, and credit to all the players and to the management team.
Absolutely. I mean, it was ugly, but that one lapse at the back, allowing Akil Wright to score the header, was absolutely decisive. The fans, I mean, the noise that fans are making, it just shows fans don't come to be entertained, they come to support their team, and they know how huge that outcome was, how big a win that was. It was a game where we had to grind things out, but we were able to do so. And then when we were questioned by Chesterfield's massive attack when Denton came on, the defence really held firm impressively.
Yeah, they really did, and there were a couple of balls into the box, but to be honest, there weren't that many.
No.
And like I said, Denton, he is that much taller, so any ball that was near him, he was able to he was getting his head onto, but there was only a couple really. It wasn't like an absolute hammering of balls into the box, and again, testament to this team. I think they've gelled really well, and you can even just see at the end how happy they were that they won, and as a team how very much together they are.
Yeah, it's got to be said. I mean, the defending isn't just a back four.
No.
The lack of balls into the box for Denton to attack shows that the midfield did very well, closing things down. There was a lot of energy and industry in that team, and and it's interesting in picking a man of the match. We've got to look at work rate as well, perhaps as
I do have one in mind actually.
Excellent. Well, go for it.
But like I say, credit to all of the team because they, as you said, they did defend as a team, and you can look at Akil Wright's headed goal. He was in the right place, right time, and Rutherford didn't stop running. And for me, I think Kennedy, I think he's a good player. I think there was a couple of mistakes in there, but again, it was a tricky game. But for me, I think Luke Young had a good game. Well, you're talking about energy and didn't stop running, and he was everywhere.
Yeah,
he really was everywhere in the midfield, and that's where, going back to pre-match when we were talking about, okay, Summerfield coming back, who would you drop? In the past it has been Young, it's been Wright, Walker and Summerfield. I don't think that's the case anymore. For me, I would keep Young in, and it is where do you put Summerfield?
Yeah.
But I think Young had a really good game, didn't stop running, and don't get me wrong, I think the team did well, but for me, Luke Young, because I think he wasn't in the team early on, and he's had a good run now, and so Luke Young for me.
He epitomises that work rate, like you said.
Yeah.
Players like him and Rutherford are just chasing everything down, constantly harrying. But he uses the ball intelligently too. He swept in a lovely ball in for Akil Wright to score the header. And I think that's a very fair call, that indeed.
And every team needs a Young and a Rutherford. The players who don't stop running.
So Wrexham stay top.
Yeah.
Brian Hughes now the fourth longest unbeaten start to a Wrexham manager's career, which is quite something. The results seem to be going against Wrexham, so absolutely crucial that they were able to come through and get the victory here. And in horrible conditions and a game of few chances, they did exactly that. A victory maybe of character rather than class, but who cares? 3 points is 3 points. And like last Saturday, this felt like a big performance. With the final score of Wrexham 1, Chesterfield 0, we'll hand back to the studio. This is the Final Whistle podcast from the Wrexham AFC media team.